Yeah.
Boom.
We're live. Do we do any of the music now, or hold on? Evan, what do you want to dance to? Feeding the ducks?
Sure.
Let's feed some ducks.
Surprise me.
Are you dancing over there, Evan?
Yes.
You're a liar. You're lying right now.
Prove it.
We're going. Welcome anybody that's watching. We are Unfound Adventures. Another Friday call. We are going to be doing a virtual table read with members from around the world, because we have people from, is he in Scotland? England? Where is Rob from?
I think he's just outside of London, yeah?
Yeah?
Talking about my Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're Rob.
Yeah, that's right.
I like to call him our Rob, but okay. Yeah, all over the world. We're going to do a live read in a bit here. They're going to be coming in like 20 minutes. Evan is going to be drawing characters from behind the Shroud for part of it, maybe, and then potentially children's book stuff. It's actually going to be less Evan today. Correct me if I'm wrong, right, Matt?
Oh no.
I think it is, yeah.
Evan, how are you?
But the first half will be a lot of Evan. We'll make up for it.
How are you going to be able to deal with not being center stage, Evan? Is that going to be tough for you?
I'll do my best to hold it together.
Matt, do we want to throw this in the group? If
Yeah,
so,
sure.
I will. I got it.
You got it? All right, cool.
Drop it in a group titled Virtual Table. Is that what we would call it? Virtual Table Read?
Yeah, perfect name for it.
Knew it, man. I knew it. Let's start off with how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing today?
Does this smell like wrong dog in here?
Oh, I think Evan's is having a better day than Matt and I right now. Evan, tell us about your day, baby.
Well, let's see. My oldest has a stomach bug, and so last night she had a big accident of the worst possible variety you could have and slept through it. So she woke up in the morning like, have you seen The Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know that scene where Katniss stumbles across PETA and he's completely camouflaged himself in the riverbed?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
So
goodness.
like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
All right,
So
there's a chance that's worse than ours.
Yeah,
yeah, new mattress and everything. So we'll see.
Matt and I just got weekend work dumped on us, and Matt had to miss another important meeting. So we're in a good headspace, and we're gonna spend time getting in a better headspace. There's an incredible not rigged fight going on tonight with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. So we'll all watch that and be shocked at the not rigged outcome of it. Other than that, Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We got the nursery put together this week. Went from a guest room with like a full-on queen bed, took that down, sold the mattress. My wife has been just getting after it this week. Sold the mattress, sold the bed frame. We took everything off the walls. We took everything out the room. I say we very generously for myself. But she's
We love you, Bella.
8 months pregnant, and so it was we. I lifted the heavy stuff, and then we painted the whole room, and then we moved a crib in there. We picked up a crib. We put new art on the wall. We got a bunch of towels. We're doing a home birth. We're getting ready for that. Yeah, we're in full on nesting mode.
Love it. I would hope that you lift all the heavy stuff. What color's the room?
I forget what the paint name is called, but it's like a sage green.
Very cool.
Just like looks like this.
Man, what
Monstera green.
If you were to structure today's call, man, what are we going to be chatting about? Because I know we're doing a virtual table read. What else do you want to cover, man? It's your world.
This is I'd love to get Evan's thought process as he draws Joran, which is a pretty interesting character. Based on one of us.
Guess who?
Yeah. Love to get a sense visually of
it's
what
me.
goes into character design.
Well, to be honest, the Joran that we're drawing today is actually going to have more of a bent for the children's book a little bit. As he's going to have a little bit of a, not a cameo per se, but he's got a little bit of a role in the book. And so I'm sort of feeling out what he's going to look like in that particular art style. So he's not quite this, you know, peyote high looking all the time, but you never know. He is that kind of guy.
He's talking about me.
And so I'm just kind of exploring, Joran, who has already been drawn a couple times in a little bit of a different aesthetic. So something that's a little bit more simplified in terms of his shape language, gives me a little bit more room to play with like some of his posing and keeping him, focusing in on his acting a little bit. The fact that he's 10 feet tall is going to factor in a lot into his role in this book or how he's going to appear in this book. So, just kind of experimenting. And yes, he is a major character in Behind the Shroud. So anything that gets a little bit more exploration for him going is going to hopefully help anyone who wants to visualize him in the novel when they're reading it.
I am curious. Yeah, you say like peyote high. For anyone here curious, we are now working on comics. So we have 3 comics out, 4th one coming out probably early to mid next year. We have a children's book, Adventures of Beck and Keith, which will be coming out end of this year or very early next year, where it gives much of a vibe of 2 young Viking warriors and their callings getting in crazy adventures. And then we have a YA novel called Behind the Shroud that Matt is creating along with an origin novel that'll be coming out next year as well. And that follows people in the timeline more towards the children's books than the comics. The comics take place, if you think of the history of Bastunia, the comics are more up to date, modern day Bastunia. These children's books and Behind the Shroud take place 100, 150 years in the past, Matt, would you say?
Joran, I think we established 183 years or something like that prior to the comics. If the comics are 293, 283?
Yeah, 293.
We're at like year 293, so we're at like year 110.
Got it. And with that, is we're going to have much more. It's going to be for the young adult readers, right? It's going to be like those late elementary school, early middle school. But this whole concept is we want to weave our stories together. We want characters to be able to play a part in other, channels, other products that
and their arcs at the storylines. Oh yeah.
So Evan, I guess when you think of a young adult drawing, or any artist thinks of a young adult novel drawing, you're thinking in a certain term, right? And then what is it that you shift to go from young adult, where I would imagine like Harry Potter, to children's book? You're right. You're drawing the same character. Like, what are the tweaks that you make to get Joran where he's at?
Well, it's funny you bring up Harry Potter, because I think Harry Potter artistically was designed actually more as in a children's book aesthetic. That original cover that I'm sure we all found in middle school, high school, however old we were. And further, like the young adult market visually has changed a lot since then. It's a lot more in the direction of, some might describe it as a little bit more emo. There's a lot of like the original cover for like Twilight was a huge game changer for the cover design space. It was, just the black cover with the harsh red apple. Wait, was it an apple? I think it was an apple. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I thought about it. It kind of changed the trajectory of a lot of these high profile young adult covers to be more like graphical and iconic in this way. This kind of hard to miss element. And so there's a lot of that goes into like young adult cover design. When it comes to characters, they tend to be much more, there's almost a comic bookiness to it, but at the same time, there's a high color vibrancy. There's a lot of painterliness to it. A lot of rendering goes into it often, and so there's different aspects of appeal that are unique to that young adult market versus the children's literature art market, where things are a lot more shape heavy, a lot more graphical in a cartoony sense. Characters are often a lot more simplified. Their anatomy is a lot more simplified. So it can really change things. In the case of Joran, his eyes are bigger. It's one of the very first impulses. He's got these kind of goofy Aardman animation like teeth.
Mhm.
There's definitely a lot of refinement. That's like the shape of his beard needs to be a lot more graphic and readable. But I'm trying to get an idea on paper at the moment rather than focus too heavily on like making everything perfect.
Yeah, first thing that I saw was the eyes with it, and it is crazy to
Yeah.
think it's the same character, but you got to think of the eyes of a parent reading this with their 1 to 5-year-old kid versus a kid that might be in 6, 11, 12 years old reading
Yeah.
this, and the character that they see, but also keeping the same like pillars of the character. I love it, man. I'm excited to see what we create with this. And ooh, back to Matt. I don't know why I can't get in this color coordinated. Could you give me access, Matt, in the unfound
Sure.
anamnesis at Gmail? So we're creating this, and then Matt, tell us a little bit about the behind the shroud. What's going on? What are we going to be reading from today? This is our first time
Yeah.
doing an audio or a virtual table read, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah. So to tie this back to Joran and the genesis of this whole thing, Dylan and I were talking about if you existed in a fantasy world and money was not an object and you just got to do the thing that you felt like was your gifting, was your calling, and you knew that everything was going to be taken care of, what do you think you would do? Like, what would be the way that you would show up in service to your fellow man? And Dylan said jester. And I have long felt like a detective has always appealed to me. And so we had that conversation, and I invite you to think about that for yourself too. We also had the conversation that was, what do you think your callings look like? Because we are practicing going through life, imagining sort of superimposed onto the world, what would my explorer beast be doing? What would my defender, what would my builder be doing right now? And how can I lean into them and how they steer my life and my consciousness in certain settings? And Dylan created one named Adder. We're going to see Adder in the story pretty early on. Adder is both. Two of yours are based on your dogs, right? Or is Adder a meshing of?
My defender calling, which is a rockhound, is based on both dogs, which
Yeah.
is going to be huge for me when one of my dogs passes, and I'm working on the fact that he will pass probably the next like 3 to 5 years, 2 to 5 years. I have no idea. He's getting up there, so
Yeah.
it's a little totem for him.
So Adder, Atticus, Kipper, Adder, and one of the unique features of Adder is it has these hagstones, which I've got mine always real close by. Hagstone is a stone that has like water or something has worn a hole through the center. So Adder wears these hagstones, also called adder stones. How perfect, right? Somebody's thinking.
Crazy.
Over his eyes. And really that one detail, like researching hagstones and the druids thought that they opened portals to other realms, was the genesis. That detail is the genesis of the whole story. It's like the story basically unfolds from that one single piece. So I thought, what if Adder can see something that nobody else can, and from that idea, you'll see. We'll plunge into the story in a little bit.
Super. It's wild to think. So on our TikTok channel this week, I talked about the concept of trying to get more imaginative with your kids, trying to get more creative with your kids or with yourself. What are steps that we can do? Because there's a lot of people out there that'll see what we're doing And they're like, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. I'm just not imaginative. To which Evan would say,
Wrong.
Evan, who's this incredible illustrator, doesn't allow people to be like, oh, well, you're just naturally good at this and I'm not. Because it takes away from all the work Evan has put into his craft and practicing and trying to perfect it and failing and practicing and failing and practicing and failing. Oh man. By the way, if you're coming in, feel free to say hello. I think there's already someone here. Dougie Barr, what's up? Good to see you. That's my dad. Right. So working to be creative is work. It's something that you put time towards. It's the same thing with imagination. So what we talked about on our TikTok is what's 2 words you can constantly come back to start to test your imaginations, to start thinking of things imaginatively, start thinking of potential stories. And the 2 words are what if. Every good premise starts with those 2 words. Oh, what if there was in this world, there was a secret society of witches and wizards that went to their own secret school to try to get better at their craft. Right. It's a what if it's a premise that starts something like Harry Potter. What if you lived in a world where everyone knew what their destiny was the moment they were born because they had a spiritual calling next to them? That's the premise that started Unfound Adventures. It's just a bunch of what ifs. What if there was what if our worlds were being orchestrated by cosmic entities that are pulling the strings on what we do every single day, and they're dealing with their own dramas? That could be the premise of any mythology, but it started with Ubuntu and his world. So hearing that from Matt, this whole concept started with a stone. Right? It's like you could take your kids to a park and say, man, that isn't a play. What if that wasn't a play structure? What if that was a castle? And we have to find a way to get in the castle. Like, these are ways to start to get imaginative, creative with your kids and with yourselves. Matt created an entire novel by looking at a rock. If you really break it down. And then, so before we get into some of the characters, I'd be curious how we found some of these people. Because we have Rob coming in today. We have Katie coming in today. We have Kurt coming in today. Yep. We have Nikki coming in today. How do we know all of these people? Because I know none of them until this, really. Who wants to go? It's really you guys. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I know. I ran into Kurt here in Austin, so we're buddies. And basically, since I met Kurt, he's been wanting to write his own comic strip and have his own animated series. He's like the guy who a lot of people say, "Oh, I'd love to be a voice actor." Well, Kurt would be the guy that could actually do it, could actually pull it off. Always doing different voices. So when this project was conceptualized, Kurt was probably amongst the first 3 people that I thought of. And yeah, Nikki is another one. Nikki's awesome. Has always just really expressed an interest in what we do. Has really leaned in and been really supportive, and has a really cool accent from being where she's from, which you'll hear it. I don't know if I want to say yet. I don't want to steal. She's from the Philippines. There, I said it.
Did it? What? You just did it.
It's like, what is this? Some sort of hook? Stay tuned to find out where Nikki is from.
Put a number in it and you got a great hook. The one place Nikki is from.
Great. Yeah, and then the other 2. Go for it.
Do you want Sorry, was that a handoff?
Yeah, this is a handoff. Mm-hmm. I'll do it. Hold on, let me do it real quick. And the other 2.
So Rob and Katie, I know from Gold Mountain Games, of which Rob is the founder and owner, and Katie is also a partner. And this is a company that produces tabletop RPG content, both bespoke in-house content, so original IPs, as well as through partnerships with other IPs. Most recently, Chris McCauley, writer of the Stokerverse, and regular TV writer. They've produced an awesome new not just game, but also game system, a whole mechanic system, in partnership with Chris McCauley and Claudia Christian's Dark Legacies universe. So that's been a lot of fun, and more to come from them.
Chris McCauley and Claudia Christian. Why do those names sound familiar, Evan?
I couldn't tell you. Chris McCauley is a big writer for TV. They're both very active in the TV space. Claudia Christian's an actress and writer who has created this world of Dark Legacies in conjunction with Chris. And it's got a very, very fervent fan base, especially overseas in the UK. But yeah, it's a really cool IP that's been fun to work with. And specifically, GMG has been involved in a lot of the prequel world building for this universe. And so that's been fun. And it's been a great platform for Rob specifically to develop a brand new gameplay mechanic system that has been extremely well received so far. So excited to see more come from that.
Also, Doctor
Really
Who.
cool.
Some of them have
also Doctor Who.
Some of them have a connection with Doctor Who. Let's use the big names, right? No, the Dark Legacies is awesome. The whole premise is like, what if we lived in a dystopian future where corporations in a capitalist, this is me doing my best job, in a capitalist world coming to its dystopian future where corporations going to war with each other. Correct? Somewhat close?
Yeah, very much so. So I mean, it's a post-capitalist reality, so very cyberpunk in terms of its theming. A lot of extrapolating based on some of the dystopian aspects of corporate America that we see today. Yeah. So if you're a fan of science fiction or stuff like Blade Runner, it's right up your alley. Trust me.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say the almighty Casey Kinsey actually also draws for them.
Absolutely.
It's just wild to all these people that we know from different facets of our life that you can start to meet and then get interested in what we're creating. I think it's the whole aspect of when you start on your creative journey, your imaginative or creative journey, you're going to be shocked at who you attract to help you continue to build this. One of them's here right now. Mr. Candor himself, Kurt Willis, newly or about soon to be married, Kurt Willis.
Greetings, gentlemen.
I am so excited. I'm so excited to dive in because I have heard some of your chapters already, and you really go into the voice acting, similar to me. I have a very good Johnny Depp impression.
Oh my God.
What would you say you sound like when you get into your character?
Great question. They stay them.
It's more of like, I would say a combination of Statham and I feel like I draw a lot of inspiration from Statham.
I was gonna say you kind of had it at Statham, man. Going back, I'm like, oh, it's really good.
Like Western, there's some Western influence too. I mean, you could just straight up do Statham for this character, I guess, but he has a little bit of a twang to him, like a gunslinger.
Yeah. Western Statham.
Kurt, man, tell us just a quick bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you live now? And what interested you to want to be a voice actor in an audio drama for Behind the Shroud?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm originally from. I grew up in the Nashville area, outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in a town called Murfreesboro, and I live in Austin, Texas now. But when I was in college, I did this summer internship where I went and knocked on doors. And my first summer, actually most of my summers, I was working like deep country, and in between houses, I had like roughly 5 to 10 minutes of just dead time. So rather than be silent, I would just like make up characters and just to make myself laugh in between houses, and would just do voices and throughout the summers as I'm between houses knocking on doors, and just to make it a little bit more fun and more eventful. So I've kind of always enjoyed. I mean, I've been doing like Statham voices and just being silly like ever since high school. Like, I have buddies from high school that will still hit me up and be like, "Hey, do the Statham voice," you know, and just um, it was just like it was like a party gag that kind of um, turned into a little bit more. Well, it's hopefully turning into more. I think this is a
It
first step
is.
to it.
That fun fact, my Joran turned out as a party gag as well. Evan loved hearing it. Man, I'm just gonna go with Candor. I'm gonna keep saying Candor. If I say Kurt, I messed up. But Candor, super happy to have you here. We have two other
Before we
people.
move on,
Oh,
before we
dang it!
move on, yeah, before we move on, I wanted to share this paragraph which is describing Kurt's character. I'm going to try to find them for everybody.
Okay.
Here's Kurt's. A
Saw you
compact
introduced me.
man, heavily muscled, with slick back blonde hair, a thick mustache, and a few days of stubble. He still had his all right, that's part. I'll read the whole paragraph. Still had his fist raised when she flung open the door. He stood before her with all his militant gusto, ears red with anger, his mustached lip quivering, and his small teeth bared like a snarling animal.
I love this.
Let's see it.
God, this is gonna.
Let's see it.
Yeah, show it. Yeah, show it. 1 second. Let me take this off screen. Can I remove? Yeah, show us that. There we go. Look at those teeth.
Short
Okay,
mustache lip quivering.
Who do you want to talk about next, Matt? Do you want to talk about Beacon Saw Sorrento, or do you want to Sawyer, as I would call her, or do you want to talk about Charm, the Eldwiser of Water?
Let's go, Saw.
Okay. So how about you? How about we'll switch it up here. You introduce Saw the character, and then I'll introduce Saw the person.
All right. Yeah. So in this world, they need somebody to really keep order. It's a pretty wild world. At one point, Saw says something akin to, "The world has gotten to a size, become of a force that rises up and needs to be broken like one breaks a stallion." It's just this like, all right, and she's at the beginning of the story. She's very bent on ensuring by all costs that order is maintained. Now, the backdrop for the whole story is a series of murders. So clearly, is she doing a great job maintaining order? Murders are happening. But yeah, she's pretty intense. I'm going to kick it over to Katie actually too, because she's done her research. What's your impression of Saw?
Also, tell us where you were born and where you live now. And fun fact about Katie, she hates me in real life too. So we're gonna get a lot of. It's gonna be very tense.
Easy to do.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. But there's a lot there. I am from West Virginia. I currently live in Ohio in one of its bigger-ish cities called Columbus. There's not much to say about myself. I'm a director over at a gaming company, Gold Mountain Games. We work on a few odds and ends here and there, and occasionally cross paths with people like you who I haven't known long enough to hate yet. But so far, you actually seem pretty cool.
Give it 30 more minutes, Katie.
Also,
You'll get
Katie,
there.
I know Katie very well. Katie is amazing and doesn't do herself any justice with what she just said.
Also true.
Well, sure. Okay. Well, apparently I'm amazing. I'm not quite sure that you need an entire list of on what, but I've been doing theater type acting for a while and done a little bit of voiceover stuff here and there for a minute or two for the past odds and ends decade or so.
And for you, I don't know if I'm not muted. What was the call to be like, yeah, behind the shroud? Sure. Like, what made you want to do this other than having a theater background? And two, what do you like about the character so far with your reads? Because you have a couple of chapters already recorded, correct?
Yeah. What drew me to it in the first place was just I really like acting in general. I play a lot of D&D. I LARP and all of that type of stuff. So I really like getting into different characters. So getting to try out a new one is always fun, and getting to try out one that someone else wrote is always a fun challenge to go into. And I've kind of played this. I keep calling her a paladin. To me, she's kind of a paladin in spirit. Just very self-assured that she is right about certain things, at least at the very beginning, and maybe understandably so. I can kind of connect with that sort of, that sort of drive to be absolutely perfect for something, and it's not necessarily working out for her. So she's a little gruff, annoyed maybe at a lot of situations, but yeah, she's a lot of fun.
And Saw and Joran have a past. Is there anything before we introduce Charm? Katie, I'm so excited to have you here and to be able to see what you look like. I feel like I haven't been able to actually see you yet. Matt, are we missing anything on Saw before we come over to Charm? Oh shoot, I got Talon. Sorry.
There she is.
Fucking
Maybe
party.
the only thing, we'll introduce a hierarchy. So Candor would be an employee of Saw. Saw is sort of an employee of Charm in a sense. And Tala used to be in this thing called the Pandit family, her character. And she's like, she got kicked out. Like she's the reject. So Charm is kind of like, we'll get there, but he's what we call an Eldwiser. Saw is what we call a beacon. Think of it like, how would you compare an Eldwiser to in history, like an actual position?
I would say the closest thing, I'd be curious Charm's thoughts on here, Rob will introduce next, is in the world of Bastunia, there's like 4 spiritual pillars, and I would equate them to like the 4 Dalai Lamas that
I
live
was
in this
thinking Dalai Lama in my head.
I mean, they even have the Pandit families, right? So we have 4 Dalai Lamas basically around the world of Bastunia whose job is to keep order. And underneath them, they have a bunch of people on pillars underneath them, or we call them beacons, of order, of architecture, agritexture, I think is what Matt calls it, and a bunch of other things. We are just seeing the line of order underneath the Eldwiser of water. The 4 Eldwisers, if you could guess: water, fire, air, earth. Over to you, Matt.
So, Saw is the beacon of water, emblem, Candor. So, Eldwiser, beacon, emblem. There's another thing called a crest, which is right below an emblem. And then there's everyone in the Pandit family starts out as a drudge. You do the drudge work, it's drudgery. And then eventually you work your way up to some of these positions that these esteemed actors today have risen to.
And with that, Eldwiser, and we'll go through these last 2 somewhat quick so we can dive in. Oh, look at this guy. Rob, who will be playing the Eldwiser of Water, whose name is Charm. Rob, man, where are you from?
Hello.
What drew you to this? What do you like about Charm?
I'm from the UK, as my voice probably gives away. I've always lived here. I've been just north of London for my entire life. I've just moved about 30 miles north from that. What drew me to this? I really like all of the work you guys do. Like, I think you guys are at your very core good people creating really creative stuff that helps people who need to be helped and is entertaining at the same time. Like, what isn't to like? I think we've kind of done a bit of work. So I own Goldmount Games, the company Katie mentioned. And what do I think of Charm? I like Charm because he is that wise elder, as his title gives away, but he's young and he's alive and he's not this kind of, he's calm, but he's not this sort of serene old, listen to me, I've been there, I've lived it all. He's kind of been thrust into this, suddenly having all of this power and stuff, and he's young and vibrant and excited by it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's almost like meeting the Dalai Lama at like 20. I think he's even younger than that. And like people, so my character looking up to Charm, and I'm pretty sure my character's older than Charm. It'll be fun.
It's
maybe not.
Okay, what do I know?
I think it's like someone. It's almost like you've gone into a job at middle age and met the person who's kind of your manager, but they're 20 and you're 50, and like it's a bit like odd. But then he's actually really decent and calm, and actually kind of does clearly know what he's doing, and fits his role.
Dang. I was going to say Matt, Kurt, and I could really empathize with that until you got to the end there. Let's go last. Let's go last introduction, and then we're going to dive into the virtual table read. So if y'all, Matt, did you throw the doc in? Does everyone have the colorized behind the Shroud template out so you can read from it?
Yep, it is all available also in the private chat if you can see that.
Nerd. So you have actual paper Katie has. So we'll go into that in just a second. But the last person I'd like to introduce, which great hook. I am going to guess she's from the Philippines. That's where she was born.
Let's wait and see.
Also, Nikki, real quick, where were you born? Unless we're lying. What drew you, and what do you like about your character?
Okay, so yeah, hi. Matt's right. I am from the Philippines. Yeah, I am from the Philippines. Surprise. Yeah, so what drew me? Well, so when Matt said that he was looking for voice actors and all of that for the fiction that he's writing, he gave me a bunch of choices that I can choose from, and I have been reading the first few chapters of the novel, so I was like, okay, I kind of feel like Saw is a bit too much for me. Like, she's a big character, and by the way, when I heard Katie, like, awesome. Like, okay, this is Saw. This is Saw. I couldn't possibly pull that off. And when Matt described Tala, I'm like, okay, I think that I can connect to her more. And then when he mentioned Ursa Griff, so I'm a huge D&D nerd. So when he mentioned that, okay, I'm in. And in my mind, that's an owlbear. So let's do
What's
it.
an Ursa Griff? Tell us what an Ursa Griff is.
Well, from which version? Mine or yours?
Your character. What does your character have for a call?
For me, it's in the fiction it's called Ursa Griff, but in my mind it's an owlbear, or I would call it an owlbear. So it's a huge beast, and half owl. At least the head is an owl, and then the body is that of a bear. And then when he jumps, he can just easily smash someone to death.
I'm so excited.
So really awesome, really badass, and I'm like, yeah.
For the record, I gave Nikki some creative liberties to start creating her character's backstory, and boy, did it get dark in a hurry! Like, whew.
I feel like any person that's played D&D is like, how quick could I get to death in my background?
Exactly.
Man, I am excited for this. So if anyone, by the way, I would give Nikki extra points because I feel like half the people that are watching us right now are just Nikki or Nikki's fans. Like 3 people in the chat already are like, hey, Nikki, yeah, cool. Stay with us. We're going to dive into this virtual table read. We're going to do a bunch of different chapters. So we're going to kind of skip around because we want to hear from everybody here. So what we're going to do before each new chapter, Matt's going to kind of come in and set the scene. Matt, I'm gonna just pass it over. I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna get into character. I'm gonna channel my inner Johnny Depp. Evan, actually, real quick. All right, dude, not needed. Great question, Casey. Evan is he is in the world of Bastunia. His name is Cancratch, which means, I think it just means grumpy in Irish.
Yeah, like crotchety.
Yeah, crotchety in Irish. And it's actually the Mount Cancratch. So it is an active volcano. That is who Evan will be playing. He's in the background the entire time. That being said, I'm not in the first chapter, so I'm going to shut up. Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you, and then we're going to dive in.
The characters do live in a constant fear of eruption. So, can you share let my screen come front and center here? All right. So first thing over here, here's a pretty early look at the cover done by Evan. Front and center, you have Pendelv the Parser, which is my character, and here in the back, holding these 2 juggling balls and holding up a hagstone, balancing it on his finger, is Dylan's character, Joran, where we're going to start. So we're starting in chapter 7. In this scene, we have Saw. You'll notice, we know this, but the color coordination has to do with who is the narrator. So this color here, this kind of greenish is Saw. So Saw, you're going to be kicking us off with, if you want to start up here, if you want to start right before my dialogue, then we'll dive right into it. I'm the dark red, that's Pendelv. The blue is Candor, which I think we all know that. In this scene, what happens is, Joran, who's played by Dylan, is what's up? You gonna start up here?
No, I was just waving. But when I said the beginning, I was like, just the beginning of the chapter. This is why I just don't talk. I wanted to start from the beginning of the chapter to have her read it, and then over to you.
Sure. All right. Hey, you got a bigger role now. Congratulations. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I want to put her on the spot.
Yeah, well, she has what it takes. So Joran, played by Dylan, he's a well-known fool. One of his beasts in the story right now has just rampaged into this town. The town is called Lucidus and destroyed half of the downtown. So Pendelv is called in by the Beacon to investigate, by Saul to investigate. There's all these murders that are happening. So he's camped out. Pendelv is camped out in the woods adjacent to the Beacon of Order's estate. Again, the Beacon of Order is this high up member of the police force, like a captain. And so she wakes up. One of her trigger happy emblems, Candor, is going to come talk about the ongoing case. In the backdrop right now, in the background, to make matters worse for Joran, this act of destruction that's just occurred basically solidifies him as the lead suspect in a string of murders, poisonings. So he's pretty heavily implicated at this point. And so, without further ado, oh, by the way, Azigra.
Well, now I'm tempted to say it wrong just because.
You can say it however you want.
Oh, Matt, are you going to tell the rules?
As long as it's Azigra.
Are you going to tell any of the rules that if we mess up the words? I'm talking again, aren't I? You said you wanted.
No, you're great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to make this fun, if you screw something up, any one of us, if you notice how you misread a line, just to make this fun, any one of us can call the person out, and say, you screwed it up, whatever, you said it wrong, without taking a beat as much as possible. Literally don't even take a breath. Just go back to the previous sentence and just pick it up. And so there's some tongue twisters in here, specifically, I think, for Joran and for Saw, but I believe in Saw. I think this will be pretty funny when we get to Joran. Okay, we're good. So on your cue, Saw.
Chaos kept an agenda. Order tried to keep up. That was what Saw thought as she woke suddenly in the middle of the night. She fell out of a busy dream and into a busier consciousness. The Azigra alarms sounded. Gariel, her calling, nosed at her blankets. Downstairs, something pounded a panicked, frantic rhythm into her front door. She took a breath, dragged herself to her feet. Nothing in her 35 years had left her as bedraggled as this case. She had pulled her black hair into a ponytail, rubbed the furrow from her scowling brow, and stood. The threaded, knotted muscles in her neck, shoulders, and legs ached. But she could do nothing about that now. Am I losing my edge? A minute ago she had been fast asleep, yet none of these disruptions had just begun. The Beacon of Order did not have the luxury of sleeping through chaos. Her hypervigilance earned her this position and maintained. Her hypervigilance earned her this position and remained a requirement. Her appointment to Beacon did not come with a reduction in responsibility. Yes, having a staff of emblems, crests, and drudges did have its perks, but Saul still liked to sink her teeth into her work. She was good at it. The best. In her inductions, she had promised the Eldwiser order. If she relaxed her oversight, allowed her tender-footed underlings a modicum of sovereignty, the fallout belonged on her shoulders. In time. That is what she kept telling herself. Eventually, they would rise to her exacting standards. Though she had bestowed her share of emblems upon Crest through the years, few had proved themselves truly worthy of the honor. Until one did, or until the day she became willing to break a promise. Late nights and early mornings would continue for Saul sleeps with 3 eyes open Sorrento. Ahead awaited another long day with community forums, pleas for retribution from grieving families, hysterical locals, pressure from her staff, petitions for her removal orchestrated by her peers, evaporating loyalty from the magnates, and impending betrayal by once steadfast emblems. Not to mention whatever unwelcome development awaited her behind her front door. It wouldn't be good news. How could it? This case had become a lap full of snakes. Her days as beacon of the order were coming to a close without any upward prospects. There was not a place for her within the esteem of the Pandit family in Failure's shadow. She needed an arrest, and soon. Not a single precious thing came to mind that she would not trade away for good news. A compact man, heavily muscled with slicked back blonde hair, a thick mustache, and a few days of stubble, still had his fist raised when she flung open the door. Emblem Candor. He stood before her with all his militant gusto, ears red with anger, his mustachioed lip quivering, his small teeth bared like a snarling animal, his dewlapped Pangolian beast, Nipper, perched on his shoulder and showing his many teeth. What type? She asked him, meaning the Azigra. The implication was plain. The Azigra alarm blared. The sound came from the watchtower on the corner of her estate, just beyond the gardens. The calling who made the noise, Caton, did so using a special organ on either side of its thorax called a timbal. Its timbals consisted of a series of rubbery ribs that buckled when the beast flexed. Each time the rib buckled, it produced a click. Caton could vibrate its timbals over 400 times per second, which created a continuous buzzing. When amplified by the beast's hollow body, the alarm could be heard clear across town. By all rights, it should not have been possible to sleep through, unless one's resting state was closer to exhaustion-induced unconsciousness. 10 murders would do that to a woman. Add several overnight stakeouts, a panicked town, the vitriol over the curfew from traders, merchants, chandlers, the wharfinger, the pressure to uphold her promise to the order of the Eldweiser, and the frustration of being in possession of no concrete evidence. And now in Azigra, the only thing darker than the circles beneath her emerald eyes was her outlook on her own future.
Actually, Beacon, it's not an Azigra. It's a calling. I laid eyes on it, and I know whose it is, seeking your permission to take Jordan the Jester into custody.
Beacon Sorrento frowned. She knew Joran well, or she used to. They had been Crest together before the Eldweiser promoted her and dismissed him. Once a relatively serious man, his dismissal amplified his quirks. He coped by abandoning the formal emblem uniform, adopting a patchwork motley, wearing a hat made from mushrooms, and always carrying around a handful of rocks. The last time she laid eyes on him, he was descending from the sky using his billowing head like a parachute. He was juggling in midair, and continued to juggle even after he dropped all of his rocks. Publicly, Joran's sightings were on the rise. In the last 4 weeks, multiple eyewitnesses reported his name in association with In the last 4 weeks, multiple eyewitnesses reported his name in association with the poisonings. Everywhere the vile orange toxin appeared, there was Joran or one of his 3 callings. While his path diverged from being an emblem for the Eldweiser, Saul could not believe how far he had fallen. When his name first appeared on the short list of suspects, she doubted, albeit the evidence stacked against him had become damning. After miners spotted him in the mountains, collecting suspicious substance, several timbermen identified him running from the Batan Watanabe, the tram conductor, and the first victim. Many others named him in the forums, corroborating stories of his presence, accompanied by the same noxious aroma that clung to the deceased. He's finally snapped, and now his name again. Explain, she demanded.
It was the shaggy one. It stampeded into town. It started by leveling the postman's rookery. You know those stones it throws around? They're like battering rams, but instead of them, at his beck and call, half of the east corridor was in rubble before I arrived on the scene. Not much any of us could do with those bludgeons in orbit. Not much any of us could do with those bludgeons in orbit. It stomped its way into the plaza, Took out the gallows, the courthouse, the marketplace, the wharfinger's office, and the boathouse. At long last, it wore itself out in the water. The mass of that fuming beast makes swimming an impossibility, so it didn't. Thing walked under the water, then reappeared on the south shore heading upriver. Then it was gone.
Gone how? Gone as in ascended? Saul asked.
This wasn't an ascension, Beacon. The beast was using its mastery.
Saul understood. When a human dies, their calling continues on for a brief period called an ascension. It served as an opportunity for man and beast to undertake a last order of business. The most common ascensions were beasts mindlessly releasing pent-up energy back into the environment. Less common, available to more advanced souls, was a final will. That might include sending one's totem to a meaningful location or attempting to deliver a message. As an occupational hazard, Saul had witnessed her fair share. Over her tenure, it was well documented that a beast without a living human could not use its mastery. At the end of Candor's explanation, a blond man with inspecting blue eyes calmly walked around the corner.
I think the threat is abated, he said. Oh, excuse me.
No, you're fine. I thought it was mine, he said, covering his ears.
Might be easier to listen in if you call off the alarm.
What kind of lost soul are you, vagrant?
Emblem Candor snarled, leaping to attention. His plated calling matched his hostility, puffing out its vibrant orange dewlap, emitting a throaty growl. The scales down the center of its long, low body stood on end, making themselves appear sharp. The vertical slits of its eyes bloomed, sucking in light, ready for a fight.
Whose spell are you under?
He cursed, using the expression of the region to accuse one of being out of their right mind. Meanwhile, Gariel stood by. The beacon's beast knew what Saul knew. This man meant no harm. This was Pendelv the Parser, the legendary detective. Before Nipper tried to bite his head off, Saul officially made the introduction.
Beacon Sorrento.
The man greeted. He clasped his hand in front of his chin and then nodded once.
Pleasure. Emblem Candor. I know all about you.
Candor creased his thin lips into a half smile. His eyes remained affixed in suspicion, as did the demeanor of his calling. The growl continued just above the range of audibility. A note of warning. An invitation to provoke the beast into a demonstration of its full power.
Should I know you?
Asked the pugnacious emblem. His beast lifted a taloned foot, poising it to strike. Pendelv shrugged.
Your beast reminds me of one of mine.
He said, taking notice.
Only small, a juvenile.
He added, matter-of-factly.
I hope you don't intend to use it against that mad dog.
I'll use my...
Candor, the beacon interrupted. I've invited Pendelv here to help us put an end to this unsavory business. The emblem grunted unhappily.
From my perspective, you're a day late and a wit short, Mr. Parser.
Candor said with no less animosity.
And you've been here the whole time. A new perspective is why I'm here, Emblem. Parsers get called in to stop the bad from happening and make the good guys look good in the process. Are we on the same side?
That mad dog was Adder, so I'm told, said Beacon Saw. Belongs to a man named Pendelv cut her off.
Joran the Jester.
You know of him? Saul said, surprised to hear the name come from the detective's mouth.
I overheard you speaking about him before.
You were eavesdropping on a private conversation? Past curfew?
Candor accused.
You're steady dancing over the line. You got a death wish?
Pendelv flicked his eyes towards Candor, but did not react.
I have ears in many places,
He said simply.
Do you understand the nature of my profession? For the sake of expediency, let's assume I know everything you do about tonight. Sounds to me like you have your man.
That's right.
Emblem Candor agreed.
I'm not so sure.
Pendelv countered. Candor looked aghast.
Some posse you are. Tonight marks the fourth witness account implicating the jester. He has been seen with 3 of the victims.
Candor turned up his nose.
I saw Ada with my own 2 eyes. What remains for your doubts to cling to? If you want the facts, just listen. I'll spell them out.
The parser nodded.
All in good time, Emblem.
Calmly, he turned away from the exuberant emblem to the woman who had requested his assistance.
Beacon, I would like to speak to you privately. Can we do that?
We can. Saul then turned to her most spirited emblem, Candor, the alarm. The young emblem chewed his lip, torn between being in service to his superior and being left out of the proceedings. Still, he did what she instructed. He gathered himself up into a tight wad of muscle before charging across the grounds towards Caden. The remaining pair and Gariel began a slow stroll across the beacon's estate, towards town. Saul did not comment on the absence of the parser's callings. Based on his previous comments, one of them was close by. She resisted the urge to look around, not wanting to betray her inner thoughts. Besides, she had requested his services, and she ought to trust his methods. Though slightly disconcerted about the notion of him and his 3 beasts examining 4 locations at once, the thought alone overwhelmed her tired mind. She had to remember that he was under her employ. No matter how hard she tried, double and triple beastborns made her feel ill-equipped, underdressed, inadequate, rejected, blind, something. And now 2 triple beastborns were in her town. It was a scenario she never thought to dread. The buzzing alarm silenced. Pendelv said,
This Joran, he has multiple beasts.
It wasn't a question. Saul nodded. 3.
It's uncommon for a triple beastborn to wreak havoc. It's not in our nature. With 1 beast, a person may be inclined to force his or her will to be done. With 2, you tend to fall in closer alignment with the deity. You see that your efforts against natural law is like trying to fight against the Lorne's current. With 3, you're part of that flow. Going against it will muddle your mind. Slowness becomes the way. With 3, you've been given the answer for every necessity. You have no use for hurry nor fret. You need only understand a situation and be what it requires.
You're saying if you're Joran, a destructive rampage would go against your nature?
I'm saying that things may not be what they seem.
Pendelv added, With all due respect, you do not know the jester, Beacon Sorrento said flatly, nor do you grasp the effects of this poison. The man has clearly been exposed to it, and it's damaging his mind. You witnessed the fallout of his madness. While I'm sure your deific sage theory pleases you, I save such reverence for the Eldwisers.
I was a witness, yes.
Pendelv agreed while massaging his blonde beard to a point.
Nearly a victim, too. I watched as Adder turned a patch of clean river into orange sludge, and then the beast, to quote Candor, walked under the water, then reappeared on the south shore heading upriver. What pacified the beast? The cleansing Lauren? A task seen through? The shock of cold snowmelt? Do you have these answers, Beacon?
No, Saul admitted. But we do have witness accounts placing Joran with the poison and a victim.
They are clearly entangled, yet...
Saul cut the parser off. I have more than enough to warrant an arrest. Much more. I have more than enough to warrant an execution. At this stage, this is what I intend. A public display. The perpetrator caught. Justice served. A show of force for the people of Lucidus. That is what the town needs right now.
And should the poisoning continue post-haste?
I have more than one rope, Saul said coldly. Pendelv coughed.
Surely.
Gathering himself, he added,
I hear you're down a gallows. Suppose you'll make do with the tree.
Precisely, the beacon said.
You do what you think is best. I won't interfere.
Pendelv assured her.
I have come all this way to parse out the root of these poisonings. I put my mind to it. At present, I find Joran to be an unsatisfying answer to this puzzle. A perceptive citizen may discern from my presence that your expedient justice is not the end of this. Then again, so would another poisoning.
We all have our part to play, Saul said.
I'm glad we understand each other.
Just then, Candor returned with his calling, looking at the edge of his patience. His sneer spoke of an itch for retribution. Beacon Sorrento gave him an assuring look, a nod that he would soon get what he most craved. To Pendelv, is there something else? The parser shook his head.
Let's get to work.
Let's hear it for Saul.
Oh
Great
my
job.
gosh.
That was a lot.
I realized how much I messed up there, Matt, by saying, let's start from the
Killed
beginning.
it.
Give Saw 20 minutes of work.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That's okay. Yeah.
That was incredible.
Wonderful job.
That was fun as hell. All right, Matt, do you want
Very
you
good.
muted yourself, Pendelv.
I sure did.
Hey,
Instinct.
Evan, how'd you like that, man?
I thought it was awesome. Amazing job, Katie. as always.
Yeah, so good.
Check in on some of Can Cratch's work. Oh, look at that guy about to be hung. All right, Matt. Looking at the time, we brought everyone. I don't know who here has plans. I'm having a butt ton of fun. I'm trying my best not to swear. So we did hear the one. But how is everyone else when it comes to Matt? How is it with time for you, Mr. Parser?
We're good.
Oh,
I think what we can do is give Saw a little break, and instead of going to chapter 13, jump down to 49. So we get two people that haven't been showcased yet. That's Joran and Charm, which this chapter is basically you guys. And then we'll move to 50, which has Tala, of course. Give the fans what they want. And that'll be it.
dope. Hold on. So where are we going? 49?
Yep.
Is this one that I'm narrating?
Oh, yeah.
Yup.
All right. Hold on. Let me find it. Do you
No,
want to give any
you guys
context
are gonna
Matt,
love
to
this
one?
one. Sure. So in 49, this is toward the end of the story. Obviously, there's 52 chapters. And after escaping death like a handful of times, Joran has finally enlisted the help of the Eldweiser, who is the head of the Pandit family, who's like a spiritually led governing body. Years ago, it seems that Joran was ostracized from the Pandit family. He grew up in it, and then he was dismissed. Saul hinted at that. And this reconciliation is long, long overdue.
Perfect. And is this where I learn what my name means? Matt?
Maybe? No. I think that's the next piece.
Got it.
That's the next chapter.
Okay. So I can go whenever?
Yep. You're muted.
I know I'm muted, but that was me getting into character, Matt. Damn it. Chapter 49, With the People. Joran spotted the pilot guard when they were still a long way out. A stretch of parch lay between them and their pursuers, far enough from the group to put them to the back of their minds.
You aren't telling me everything.
Charm accused him. I am, the jester squirmed.
You forget how well I know you.
I guess I left out the role Sawyer played, Joran began. We couldn't have done it without her. Being fair, most of the credit should go to her. Without her, we would not have sprung the trap to begin with. She brought it all together. She nearly sacrificed herself to kill the latest hound. She awakened a second mastery, transformation, giant state.
Joran,
Yes, Eldweiser?
you are feeling guilty.
He appraised. Joran froze, but then nodded slowly. I am a man of the people, Eldweiser. Some of our people have died. Charm glanced from Joran to Saw to be sure they were both listening.
You did not kill them. We live in an imperfect world. You did not invent a Zigra. The burden of their existence is not yours alone to bear. You are not the first one to fight with them, nor will you be the last. There is not a person, your age or mine, across this continent who have not lost someone to the Chaos Spawn. Some have given a little, some a lot. Some give everything. Images of Argus leapt to the jester's mind.
Oh, that's me.
Yes.
That's my bad. Images of Argus leapt to the jester's mind. Charm was not finished.
For as long as time ticks, I suspect they will be a part of life. Acknowledge your sphere of control. By ourselves, we do so little. None of us alone is as strong as all of us are together.
You are right, Joran said.
Why did you not come to me sooner?
Charm asked with a touch of chastisement. Chastisement?
You discover a breed of shadow Azigra. What compels you to risk your lives instead of asking for my help? Do you not know that I cherish you?
The Eldwiser stared deeply into Saw's eyes before shifting his rapt attention to Joran. We know, Joran said.
No, you don't know.
Charm countered.
You cannot know.
You asked me to be a man with the people. I was only trying to uphold my duty. I am trying to do my best. I want to grow, Eldwiser, instead of turning to you when the challenges are bigger than me.
You have grown. You have made me proud.
Joran began, but his breath caught in his throat. Thank you, Eldwiser. While Charm embraced his old friends, a call made its rounds from Gariel to Vunis, and finally to Adder. The eternal water dragon greeted and Vunis, having met them years ago. A call had never met the bovine hound, nor did it know the nuances of the beast's masteries. In the years leading up to Joran's exit from the Pandit family, prior to becoming the Jester, the large man, then an adult-sized boy, only had two beasts. Came first, at birth, when Joran was only 12, as most of the temple children just discovered their masteries for the first time. Joran received a second beast. Joran was already paying attention. Charm was already paying attention to Joran on the merits of his dynamic relationship with but to receive a second at the green age of 15 had made him remarkable. On the fateful day when Charm instructed him to leave the hierarchy of the Pandit family, to be a man of the people, Adder was still a decade from emergence. Adder hovered one of its hagstones out in front of Akal's eye. I miss it, you know, the jester admitted, meaning life in the temple.
You are welcome back.
How? Joran asked, betraying a longing that he could not admit for many years. His several brushes with death over the last couple of months made appraising ancient hurts feel trivial by comparison. In what position?
Oh, John, you must know in your heart that you are destined for larger things than the hierarchy. I could not invent a title that fits you.
Charm said, glancing over at Akal, who peered through the hole in Adder's hagstone inquisitively. Droplets of undulating water guided the stone into a position between Akal and the approaching pilot guard, who would be upon them in fewer than 2 minutes. Joran nodded. I do long for a family, the jester said honestly. Like what I used to feel in the temple, in drudgery and cresthood. I draw the circle around all the people, but the people draw their circles much smaller. I wish for a partner. I wonder about a child of my own blood.
That is not forbidden to you, Capenzi.
Charm said, using the god's term of affection. What woman would... Joran began, but stopped himself. I'm sorry, Eldwiser. I only wish to serve you well.
You do not need to hide yourself from me, Joran. That's not your name. You do not need to hide yourself from me, Joran. I see all of you, and I love all of you.
The jester nodded. What do you see? Charm sighed. He took one of Joran's gigantic hands in both of his own.
A man need only look as far as one's beasts to know how his soul is shaped by his thoughts. Through I see your playfulness, your desire to connect, your willingness to accompany, your flamboyant showmanship, and most of all, your aim to alleviate the pain of humanness amongst your fellows. Through Venus, I see you are crafty, resourceful, influential, and incurably mischievous. I admit, it is this trait of yours that I most admire. I saw guile in your scarlet totem when we first met, and recognized at once how it could be put to use in a most serious world. As you embody your devious beast, you will make enemies of the makers and breakers of the world, who in their death throes will flail with violence like an azigra torn in twain. Your next great pilgrimage will be your walk with Venus, and I will be close at hand. And as for Atta, my new friend, your third beast, who offers me a window into a tilted world, this shaggy beast showcases your openness to the truth, your resolve to protect the vulnerable, and your devotion to your values. Atta wishes to be close to you more than any of your others, exhibited by its readiness to abandon sight, for in having its own senses removed from you once. For in having its own senses, it is removed from you once, which is once too far. Still, it is a champion of its duty to protect above its own preferences, and will stare endlessly into the eerie shroud if it means a better chance at serving you.
Joran thought about Adder's insistence on carrying the first Shroud Hound, even though mass made the humongous fungus beast a more sustainable host. With fresh eyes, Joran looked upon his beasts and wholeheartedly loved them, an emotion they shared which filled the four of them up in a warm circular loop. The upwelling of affection came with a pang of anxiety. Venus will make enemies?
Naturally.
Venus? Joran
Yes.
asked again, tossing a thumb at his red beast.
Yes.
That adorable red cuddler over there? Charm gazed upon his large friend with closed-lipped smile.
No different from Atta levelling towns or altering minds. The beast is uniquely suited to upset certain brokers of power.
Joran blushed. But who would not love that? Joran asked, unable to imagine someone regarding the beast with anything but amusement or fondness. Behind them, his red totem used mineral tap to render a gift for a call. It was a gilded halo drawn out of a gold deposit deep beneath the dusty hardpack. Several of its tails cradled the metal with its deftness, customizing it to the contours of a call's antennae-eyed head. Antennae-eyed head. How? Why?
Because, Joran, a man's belief in ownership. The deity did not set the world up to be staked out and claimed, nor did he intend for the advent of mint, which creates men with hordes who lead lavish lives in separation from community. What man needs to lend his mastery to the betterment of society when he can use mint to provision himself instead? I foresee a time when one's chief pursuit in life is minerals, when people go entire lifetimes without discovering their masteries. Man's downfall lies in his need to own all that he desires. Man's salvation lies in being reminded of what is truly important. That is where Venus and you come in.
Joran scratched his head, reminding mankind what was truly important. Is this one of those lessons where I understand when the time is right?
Well, or you could ask or you could have Pendelve explain it to you.
Pendelve stiffened and said,
Not sure now is the time. We have company.
and scene.
Dylan.
Anyone ever go on
Way to
reading?
go, man.
Very curious from Katie. When you read as a narrator, I have no idea what's coming next. And I'm like, am I reading this right? Do you go through the same thing, or is that just me?
Oh yeah.
Thank God.
In the moment, can't remember it at all. It's just kind of a fugue state where you're looking at words and they're happening in front of your face, and you're just hoping that you're saying them out loud instead of reading them in your head.
Good. That's what I felt.
I mean, there are some real tongue twistery parts of that as well. Like I love
Yeah,
the way it's
absolutely.
written. The language is really cool, but yeah, there are some sentences in that which are hard.
Yeah.
I hate the way it's written. Thanks a lot, Matt. What's next? What's the next chapter, man?
Oh my gosh.
That
Before
was
we go to
epic.
this next
Y'all
chapter,
killed that.
yeah, you did.
Thank you.
You did.
Awesome
I
job.
was
Awesome job, Charm.
I was editing
Thank
a
you,
chapter
thank you.
recently, like listening to what Dylan had sent me, and I forget the word. It's happened so many times where he pauses, he says the word wrong like 4 times. Seriously, Matt? I hear this in the audio. Seriously? I hate you, man. Just like getting all up in arms about trying to pronounce these words. Oh, that's great.
Oh,
All right, next scene.
I don't send you those. I delete those ones and re-record.
Oh, I send them to him.
Oh,
I get
yeah.
pissed at Matt.
Yeah, I get it. I get them all. Okay. Last scene for today, chapter 50, narrated by Tala, which is Nikki. So what's happening here is, obviously we've just seen the reconciliation. There's one final battle. So in the story, there's been the heroes have definitely won some key people over to their side at this point, but there's a stubborn few who are still under the influence of these shadow Azigra, who they still wish to see them dead or behind bars. And Tala is the one who's leading the pilot guard. She's like the captain of the pilot guard. And she's been employed to do her job. And the people that have employed her are not here to call her off. And so she's going to do it. She's going to see it through.
Are we starting from the top of the chapter or as her heart settled?
Let's take a look at this. Your call. We definitely could spare you reading 3 full pages.
I already screwed Katie once. That's my bad. You don't have to do it again.
I did not practice for the whole chapter. I started with the as her heart settled. That's
as I mentioned earlier, we could easily start like right here.
She already said where the heart settles. Where is that?
Oh, where the heart as her heart settled. All right, we can start there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
All right,
Oh,
I'm going to use
I'm sorry,
the
hold
one
on,
that...
hold on. I'm scared now. Sorry. I'm talking out loud. I'm going to mute myself.
Are we ready, Jordan? Okay. As her heart settled, Tala became aware of her pounding head. It felt as though she had been somewhere else and only suddenly returned to her body, a body that was in pain. Her mouth was dry, her face burned from the sun's belligerence, and her skin was raised by the peppery wind. The water mixed with sweat turned to salt in her wounds. It was like awakening from a dream when the emotions are fresh and real, but the dream itself shattered and out of reach. A little wet and a little pissed off, she said.
I can see that.
Joran said.
How did you like my juggling?
As they began speaking, a call drew its water back into itself and returned to scaled form. Now reassembled, the dragon calling was even larger than she thought. Its shadow crossed over her, blotting out a quadrant of the sky. In this form, it was undeniably one of the 4 eternal callings. The blonde man, Pendulph the Parser, stepped forward to address her. Along with the jesters, his 3 beasts lingered behind him, in postures of passive non-resistance.
We know you're under Hassan Bassan's. We know you're under Hassan. we know you're under Hassan. All right, we know you were under Hassan Bashan's employ, responsible for turning Joran and likely myself to edifice. Do you acknowledge the higher authority of the water pandit in this region, that of the beacon of order or the Eldwiser of water?
Tala grunted. That is a question for my employer. Pendulph went on.
It was the beacon herself who instructed Master Bashan to imprison Joran in the first place. Surely her advocacy of our innocence would supersede your employer's orders.
Not to me, it wouldn't, Tala said simply.
I see.
Pendulph said.
If you were in my position, what would you do, Captain?
I would go quietly to Edifice and let the truth be sorted out by these higher authorities.
Is that so?
The parser said, nodding peaceably.
Very well.
While Pendulph appeared amenable to arrest, the jester did not appear to grasp the implications of his situation.
Eldweiser,
He began.
can you believe they said I couldn't juggle?
The jester asked.
Is that what you were doing?
The Eldweiser of Water asked him, coming to stand at Tala's side.
Were your eyes closed?
Joran said, gawking.
I counted 11 stones at once.
Charm smiled.
I see no reason to contradict you.
Are you going to let him have this one?
The parser asked, casting a quick glance at Adder, who breathed heavily as if, until moments ago, the beast was engaged in some strenuous work.
Would it make any difference?
The blonde parser shook his head.
When he looks in the mirror, he sees a juggler.
Ha! You better believe it.
Joran said cheerfully. Eldweiser, will you try to stop me from arresting these men and their beasts? Tala asked, wanting to express deference but also wishing to avoid upsetting her employer. Both were powerful men, in different ways.
I won't try to stop you.
Charm answered.
You won't?
Saw said and tried to stand.
They're innocent.
The Eldweiser smiled.
I have more pressing matters, Beacon. I need to go with you to Lucidus to destroy the rest of the hounds. Once that is resolved, I will come for them.
The hounds? Tala asked. She ran the back of her hand over her cloak, scraping off a layer of disgusting goo and flicking it into the dirt. She held her nose away while she did, straining to avoid the brunt of the stench. No, not her. Sorry. She held her nose away while she did, straining to avoid the brunt of the stench.
Woo!
The rest of the guard showed similar malaise. Does someone want to explain what just happened?
They saved your lives, that's what.
Saw managed. Tala bit her lip. Saved us. I'm listening.
Donna!
That's so good, guys. That's so really fun. Yeah.
Shout out to Candor, who's just came in, crushed it, and then sat out for 3 chapters.
I'm just enjoying the show. That was amazing.
I am.
No.
I'm down to do these more often if y'all are. This was super fun.
Candor, you want to come in and hit a little bit of this? Do you feel
We cer-
shortchanged?
We certainly can. Yeah.
Where is this? Yeah, you crushed this when we practiced it one time. Anyone who wants to stick around and hear Candor, knock this out. I sure do.
If anyone does want to leave, we want to make sure we say we love you. Thank you so much for coming. We do these every 2 weeks. Please feel free to come back. For anyone that wants to stay for an encore, it's kind of like when you go to the concert and then the band leaves knowing that they're going to come back. Which, let's be honest, it's like they already tell you what the encore is. Anyway, we're here for the encore. I'm going to shut up again. Matt. Over to you, Matt, to explain where we're at, Matt.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So this is taking a little bit of a step back. We're back in chapter 44. The gang, which would be like Joran and Pendulph, they flee from justice out to this place called the Parch. It's like this, dried up, desiccated section of desert, and they go in there and hide. And Candor gets separated, and Candor is he's basically back on their trail. You know, they almost get away. They're trying to escape out of this, to borrow Brandon Sanderson's term, this like shattered plane, or like down in these chasms. They're coming out of the chasm now, and Kandor is hot on their heels, trying to make sure that they don't escape.
Emlyn Kandor always hated Joran and Pendelv from the moment he met him. If he were honest, he despised the Beacon too. She disgraced Lucidus and the emblems in her employ by bringing in a Pasa. They hadn't needed him. They had proved that by tracking the Jester down and arresting him, getting a noose around his neck, and he would sooner not think about what happened next. Nipper took aim and fired off a bolt of aura. The Jester ducked behind a boulder at this range with the slope working against him, and a field of scree in his way. He would take a perfect shot. He slowed them down with the regular blast, forcing them to take cover. All the while, he scampered up the incline. He gained on him. His shot improved with every step. The promise of promotion fueled him on. With Saul gone, the Eldweiser would be looking for a new beacon of order. Emlyn Kandor measured himself a shoe-in. He would move out of his house into the beacon's estate. He would garnish his lapel with new decor, the beacon's brooch. In his new station, the emblems would fall under his authority. He could recruit more. He could expand Lucidus. He could run the Waterlands region as he saw fit, doing away with outmoded customs, usher in a new era, a true order. Not the shilly-shally version that Saul wrought, but one characterized by iron deterrence. For starters, Saul had to outsource pilots from Edifice. Such an embarrassment. Her leadership, devoid of inspiration, failed to win over even one pilot from a single bandit family. Emlyn Dannon did not count, as Gavian was not large enough to ride. Yet Hassan Bakan the Breaker, a plebeian outside of the bandit family, employed 8. 8! Once he took cover under his leadership, people would revere the name Beacon Cyrus Kandor. The Sublime, the Usher, Beast. It will be a new era. He neared his quarry. They were getting frantic. They approached a section of the exit where they would be vulnerable. There the path steepened and lacked cover. They would be forced into the open with no safe place left. They would have 2 choices, surrender or perish. He instructed Nipper to begin pooling aura. It was scant in the parch, but any master of the arc projection knows how to manage his stores. Whenever possible, he collected aura into Nipper's Cavertinius. Whenever possible, he collected aura into Nipper's Keratinus scales, a trick he discovered by accident. Once, after mustering a heavy slug, he held his fire. Instead of allowing the aura to bleed out of his control, it redirected into his pangolin beast armor. Since any chance he got, he actively replenished his reserves. He reached his protected crook in time. Pendelv, who led, had yet to cross the choke point. Nipper took aim. The Pasa walked in the gap. Nipper fired a precision kill shot. The moment it left his calling snout, he knew it would connect. It moved swiftly, sizzling hot and blue. Its trajectory matched the pace of the Pasa. It would strike him dead in the side of his head, killing him on contact. He relished in a moment of triumph. Yes, good riddance. Impossibly, Nipper's blast dispersed in the inches before it took the Pasa in the temple. The air rippled, absorbing color, and then coalesced into the shape of a reptilian calling. The Pasa had used his beast as a shield. Its scales absorbed the blast, not without harm, but without fatality. Without missing a beat, with a reptilian beast over each shoulder, Gariel and Luke Pendelv scurried for the exit. Before Kandor could recover from his surprise, Joran scampered across the gap, cradling Saul, whose eyes were open. She blinked, her expression numb. She was alive. They were taking her. Joran followed closely at Pendelv's heels, dashing across the choke point, the exit less than 10 steps away. If they were allowed to reach it, Kandor's slim advantage would evaporate into hopeless exposure. Precious time kept ticking, while Kandor fumed. The emblem recognized as Nipper the emblem recognizes as Nipper readied itself, that a kill shot at Jorn would kill Saul. She would want him to take the shot, he told himself. Furiously, he drew all of the ore from within Nipper's scales. He drained the calling, preparing for one final blast. When he could extract no further energy, he took the shot. Full barrel, he screamed. The blast exploded from Nipper's gullet in a flash of violet. It bellowed, releasing a concussive pressure. It bellowed, releasing a concussive pressure wave. His targets disappeared behind a wall of dust. The incendiary. What? What is that? Incendiary?
I love that your real voice comes out when you're confused.
The incendiary missile wreaked havoc. Before him rose the glow of molten dust and the deafening thunder of vaporizing stone. Had he gotten them? It must be so. There was no escaping such a blast. Unseen to Kandor, between him and his targets, 2 massive shells of stone calved off either face of the chasm. They shook the earth as they fell, collapsing more of the wall into the corridor. It amassed into a catastrophic rock slide. Emblem Kandor licked his lips, tasting victory, blind to his grievous error. Out of the cold of dust emerged an avalanche of rock. The realization came too late. There was nowhere to go. The ferocious emblem and his armored beast staggered backward, dreaming of escape in spite of its impossibility. In anger, in sadness, in disappointment, in denial, in defeat, he faced death. He cursed it at the top of his lungs until the cascading stone swallowed his screams.
Great job, Kandor.
None of us came off
Amazing.
mute. I was trying to clap.
Great job, dude.
So good. So
I
good.
thoroughly enjoy myself when these words arrive that are tough.
Oh. All right, we are
Great job, man.
now an hour and a half in, so we will let people go. Last words from everyone. How you're feeling after it? I'll get to go in order. Charm, how you feeling?
It's really nice to put it all together. Like, I've listened to each individual things, bits and pieces, but like actually reading it through with other people is really cool. Really like it.
Love it. Tala, how you feeling?
Good. Yeah, I like it. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I was trying to not let my accent slip through, but I'm imagining that Tala would sound like that, like trying to not be over with her accent, because she's been, she left the North over a decade ago. I would assume that accent would have been,
I would love
gone.
Okay. I would love for you to write her background. If I guess Matt would know. Can we put her background in the Facebook group, or is it too dark?
Yeah, you could dig it up.
I don't know if it's.
Yeah.
I could send it, but it's a bit too dark.
Send it to me at least. Let me put it
Yeah,
in
I
the
definitely
Discord
want to
channel.
read it.
Yeah, put it in the Discord channel. Put it in the Discord channel for us.
Okay. All right.
Kandor. Oh my gosh, how you feeling after this, man?
Feeling good. My throat hurts a little bit, but I thought it was fun. It was good to get everybody together and actually kind of play off each other and go back and forth. So I'm definitely down to do more of these in the future.
Awesome, man. I love it. Saw. No pressure after that. How you feeling?
It's awesome. It reminds me a lot of, before you start really setting the actual stage, the theater read-throughs with a bunch of other, teenagers back in the day. It's really good stuff. It's always really great to hear other people and know who you're playing off of when you don't otherwise as much. I mean, you hear the clips and stuff and you hear bits, but when they're able to respond to you, there's a lot of energy there, and that's just fun. So,
Awesome.
great time.
Love it. Real quick, Can Cratch. How was it all?
I thought everyone was great. Great job, everybody. It was a lot of fun to listen to. Everyone except Dylan. I have some notes.
Okay.
Otherwise, no, this was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to listen to. It was a lot of fun to get to draw over it and not try to talk and draw at the same time. That's a nice change of pace.
By the way, this is what Evan was creating behind the scenes, not behind the shroud, behind the scenes this entire time. That will be Jorn the Jester. but
in the children's book.
Children's bookized in our upcoming book, Adventures of Beck and Keith.
Love it.
I'll go next before I pass it off to Matt, and then you can send us off. Evan, clearly you were saying the only notes I won't take is more Johnny Deppy, because I've already felt like it was like full Johnny Depp. I loved it. This was so much fun having a bunch of people here, and like you guys were saying, bounce off of each other. Yeah, I would love to do this again. Different chapters, maybe the same chapters as we get more comfortable with each other. But yeah, love this stuff. That's it from me. Matt, over to you. What did you take? And feel free to sign us off.
Yeah, y'all did my my writing justice, and I really enjoyed it. You know, there's a little bit of vulnerability to that, of course, but that really didn't come up. As soon as you got in character and you started reading the lines, I was able to lose myself in it. So it's a testament to you guys.
Oh shit! Yeah, before you sign us off, I'm gonna come back in. Can we give it up for Matt? Matt wrote all of that. I felt like I was just reading a really good novel from this amazing author, which I was, but that was Matt. Congrats,
Incredible.
Matt. It's gonna be so good when it comes out, man.
No doubt.
All right, I'll sign us off. Jordan likes to take center stage as the jester. Appreciate you all that are watching. Thank you so much. We will run more of these in the future. If you want to learn more, stick around in our Facebook group. Feel free to comment. We want to create this world with everyone. I think the more we can live in boundlessness where people are adding to this, the better. So that's what we're all about. Go be imaginative. Go be creative. We appreciate you all. I almost had that perfect.